The Mueller investigation chews up Manafort and Cohen. ICE kicks out an old Nazi. The liberal love affair with spooks, and the Fed hikes interest rates. All this and more on this edition of Truth is Making a Comeback.
Truth is making a comeback. America's top stories with Lisa K. Donner.
The vast, deep, and broad web of special counsel Robert Mueller hit landfall in two important cases this week. First, the president's personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, cut a plea deal with federal prosecutors. The 51-year-old attorney pled guilty to 5 counts of tax fraud, 1 count of campaign contribution violations, and 1 count of lying to a bank. And there's more. The jury in the Paul Manafort case finally reached its verdict. They found the president's former campaign chairman guilty of 8 charges, but they were unable to reach a unanimous decision on the other 10 counts leveled at Manafort. Joining us now is Liberty Nation's legal affairs editor, Scott Cosenza. Scott, it's been a pretty busy week, hasn't it?
It has been a busy week, Lisa.
Okay, so let's begin with the Paul Manafort verdict. So the jury found the Trump campaign chairman guilty on 8 counts and couldn't reach a verdict on the other 10. What do you make of that?
When I see a verdict like that, it encourages me, Lisa. It says that the jury examined each and every count and the evidence against the accused with respect to each and every count. And some of them couldn't agree whether it was not guilty or guilty. And so it's appropriate that there should be a mistrial declared on those counts.
Meanwhile, Manafort faces another trial in D.C. What's that about?
More of the same. It's about his attempts to conceal his income from the political consulting he did with respect to the Ukraine and Russia. Not Russia in the sense of dealing with the 2016 election, that is, but just consulting money he made and didn't want to pay taxes for, and then tried to conceal the source of that income. And given that the prosecution was effective in the first trial, at least with respect to many charges, we can expect that they'll be effective again in the next trial, and that Paul Manafort will very likely face more convictions.
Okay, so now let's move over to Michael Cohen. Apparently his voice cracked when answering the judge's questions. Doesn't seem like he's dealing very well with this situation. What do you make of Cohen's plea deal?
Well, Michael Cohen basically just said that I'm willing to go to federal prison for several years, or recognize that I am going to federal prison for several years. So it's certainly, he's not some street tough who's familiar with life inside the behind bars. So it's certainly understandable that would be his reaction.
Okay, so you said that you believe Michael Cohen to be the more significant threat to the president. Let's talk about that a little.
Well, certainly, the behavior that Manafort was convicted of occurred well prior to the election or the announcement of President Trump's candidacy even. That's old stuff that we presume Mueller is using as a lever to try to get Manafort to testify against Donald Trump. But it doesn't implicate Donald Trump's behavior directly. Whereas with Mr. Cohen, he has pled guilty to federal election crimes. So he has said that he paid or caused to be paid money to Stormy Daniels, and I think Karen McDougal is the name of the other woman, for the purpose of influencing the campaign. And in fact, I made a note of his quote so that I could read it now, Lisa. And it's what he said was, "I participated in this conduct, which on my part took place in Manhattan for the principal purpose of influencing the election." Now, the reason why that is a vital distinction is because if Donald Trump orchestrated these payments or authorized or instructed him to make these payments for the purpose of influencing the election, then the idea is that that could be seen as impermissible election spending, violative of campaign finance laws. If, however, Donald Trump did it in order to protect his reputation, whether that be with the public at large or his family, again, this is an allegation of extramarital dalliance, then it may not be illegal. And so I thought it was curious the way it was structured and the way the quote says, "on my part." So we'll have to see whether that was on Mr. Trump's part or not.
And Scott, any final thoughts for our viewers?
Yes, I think the best takeaway that we can make, Lisa, is that the hypocrisy about private sexual conduct when it comes to some members of who've been president of the United States versus others is so strong that we need smelling salts to be able to pick ourselves up off the floor from it. Donald Trump had a one-night stand with this woman and didn't want anybody to know about it. And because people don't like, I guess, the fact that Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton, and they can kind of wrap it up into this Russia collusion case, there now is like the whiff of that this has something other than to do with the fact that Donald Trump simply wished to conceal a sexual encounter with a woman that wasn't his wife. And that's the long and short of it.
I guess the moral of the story is don't be friends with the president. That's Liberty Nation's legal affairs editor Scott Cosenza reporting from Washington, D.C.
Truth is making a comeback. Visit us at libertynation.com.